Welcome to Waypoint Connect. It's so great for you to join us, and it's my privilege to welcome back Leanne Naidoo.
Thank you very much, Dirk. It's lovely to be here.
I appreciate the time because I know we had to do a little bit of quick thinking and quick feet work to get you in here, but it's always better to chat to you live than using Zoom or any other technology like that. Our topic is teens. We've been talking about parenting in the 21st century. If we just look back at us as parents, things have changed when we were kids to now. Plus, nobody gave us a manual for it. And I just think back a few years when we were still in group and we did that parenting course. And that was great to go through, and it kind of prepared the way for us for teenagers. So our topic today is teenagers specifically, and that's why I invited you in, because we share that pleasure of raising teens.
The pleasure and the pain.
It's all mine. So if we had to talk about teens, and helping parents that are at the brink of going into that season, what would you advise them?
It's a very broad topic, Dirk, and there's a lot to say.
So
we could be
that
busy for
down
days,
for us.
but one of the things that I'm really passionate about is just the emotional support of teens. Because often what happens when our children become teens, it's a season of transition for them, but for us as parents, it's also a season of transition because we've become accustomed to these little beings who are very dependent on us and love us a lot, and lots of affection and lots of connection and so forth. And then they hit the teens or even the pre-teens, and then there's this change where now they don't want to spend much time with us, want to go to the shops, no thank you, want to do this with me, no thank you.
So
and
you experienced that as well?
Yep.
Okay.
I do. I didn't expect it. After 7 years of studying psychology, did not expect it. I thought mine would be different. I thought they'd love me so much they would just keep going to the shops with me, but to no knee, did not work out like that. And so we have to adjust to that, because that is not rejection. That is teens individuating, becoming who they are, figuring out who they are as individuals separate to the parents. And we have to love them through that, and we have to get over ourselves, because it's not personal. My boys will not shop with anyone. It's not just me. So it's definitely not personal. And once you're over that and you realize that they actually really do need that emotional support, even though they are sort of seemingly rejecting the parent, that it helps you to kind of keep going with your role of nurturing, providing emotional support, and loving them through one of the most difficult stages, I think, of life.
Yeah. And when you refer to one of the most difficult stages in life, it's not that they experiencing more. They've always been experiencing a lot in terms of the extent of emotions, but now it's defining myself in terms of the world out there, friends, making my own decisions, and suddenly with them becoming more self-sufficient as individuals, they need to make more choices for themselves. So you add into that emotions, and we ill-equipped as parents to engage about our own emotions, never mind engage with them about their emotions. So what I've come to realize in preparing for our parent conference that's coming up is that it's so crucial for us to be emotionally healthy, because number one, it sets the scene for our kids, because we lead by example. It's more what we do than what we say. But then secondly, it then helps us if we equip them with a vocabulary that they need to understand what it is that they're experiencing, and then to be able to express that. And for teenagers, it's difficult because you've got this barrier that's seemingly developing between your parents and yourself. And now you have to talk about feelings as well, especially between boys and their fathers. So how would you help parents to navigate through that and kind of push in there?
Well, I love what you said about parents understanding their own feelings first. I believe that's very important. Emotional self-awareness, just noticing when you're anxious, noticing when you are stressed, when you are angry, when you are frustrated, being mindful of those emotions so that you manage them in a way that you don't either project them onto your kids or take them out on your children, for me is a very helpful starting point. And then secondly, being able to also recognize the emotion in them and to give genuine empathy. I think a lot of parents make the mistake of thinking that empathy is giving in, or it's a soft approach, or you need to give tough love, for example. And there's a time and a place for tough love, but tough love never means you don't love your child, and it never means that it never excuses you from trying to understand the inner world of your child, because that is where emotional connection takes place, is when you put yourself in the shoes of your teen and you understand the world from their perspective. And it's often scary, which they don't necessarily realize. They don't notice that they have anxiety around some of the new situations and experiences they must face. And so you as a parent have to try and help them to recognize their own anxieties, and then to know what to do with it. Sometimes you push them to overcome the anxiety and try the new thing, and sometimes you encourage them to pay attention to the anxiety and say, well, because anxiety protects, it helps you to not make certain mistakes. So if you're feeling nervous about going to a certain party or an after party or whatever the case may be, then you need to actually pay attention to that feeling sometimes and say, okay, my intuition is telling me this is maybe not such a good idea. So having those conversations where you both real with them about your own feelings, and you're providing a safe space, and I emphasize safe space, to let them explore their emotions and where they stem from and why they're having them, really creates connection. And that's what emotional support looks like.
And part of that safe space that you create is not engaging in the conversation from the perspective of it's my responsibility to give advice, and because that brings judgment with it. I know better, so I'm going to tell you what to do. That's not a safe space. That's a learning moment. That's class. That's what we experience there. But part of that safe space is it's okay for you to share things with me, and I'm just going to listen. And our kids don't go there by themselves. That's the mistake that I made. Asking them and waiting, and it's never going to happen, especially with boys. You need to be intentional about the questions you ask, and open-ended questions so that they can fill in the blanks, give them that opportunity to share, but it's actually proactive rather than reactive.
100%. I like what you're saying as well about asking the right questions. So if your questions are too vague and general, you're going to get, okay, fine,
Yeah, fine.
Yes, no, and that'll be the end of the conversation. So I've discovered, instead of saying, how was school, what happened in English today that was really interesting? And after a bit of thought, there's always an answer to that question. Or like, what's happening in history at the moment? Or how stressed was your geography teacher today? And if you just put a little bit more thought in how you engage them and the kinds of questions you're right, non-judgmental approach, vital. The minute there's a little hint of judgment or a lecture coming on, that's it. That's the end of the conversation. So they might put on that face of I'm listening, but the mind's...
You know what one teenager said to me? Because I asked them, do you speak to your parents about stuff? You ask them questions. And he said, yeah, I would ask him, but then we would go on in these long explanations, and that's not what I wanted to know. I just wanted an answer. So also, as parents, we think we're helping and we're not. So getting feedback from them is important, and that is setting the scene for them to be able to give us feedback and say, you know what, I ask you these questions, you give me these long explanations because that's how your brain works, but that's not actually what I want. I just want a shorter answer, and that helps that conversation happening in the future instead of avoiding that conversation and that question being asked. And it's difficult, but we need to create that space in our families to have those conversations and get feedback as parents on how we're doing as parents.
That's true. That's absolutely true. And so to guard against going off on a tangent of advice, yes, advice and guidance has its place. Don't get me wrong. There are times when we do need to guide and we do need to inform. That has its place. But just as important, to listen, to explore. I've even discovered doing a little bit of research on their interests really sparks great conversation. So, Dirk, do you know who Lil Nas X is?
Yes, I do.
Well, I'm impressed.
I'm not a fan. I just want to say I'm not a fan.
I just want to say for the record, I'm not a fan either. However...
Nas, this is to you. We're not fans.
However, if you ask a teen or if you strike up a conversation around Lil Nas X, they are blown away. They are like, I mean, I'm still very young, you understand, so it's not that surprising.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's quite surprising.
To take that step.
And you'll find that, just that kind of inroad through a perceived shared interest can help facilitate a fun conversation. So sometimes you also need to lighten up and have a laugh at a pregnant man and just, not turn everything into a teaching moment.
Yeah.
Although teaching moments are important, some moments of just light laughter and connecting over something strange or weird, or it's just as important in the relationship.
Is there any other topic you want to quickly go into, or are you happy to share that?
The only thing that I want to say is that we must nurture our attachments with our teens. That if you have a good connection, don't assume it's always going to be good.
Yeah.
Be mindful of where you're at in your connection with your kids. If it takes a knock, we talk about attachment injuries. They happen in all relationships. When there are attachment injuries, when it feels for whatever reason that you are disconnected, be mindful to try and repair. And how we repair is by spending time, listening, paying attention, going back, processing if need be, saying sorry. All of those things I think are super important in terms of looking after our attachment with our children. So don't be too discouraged if you are feeling disconnected or if something happens that creates disconnect. There's always opportunity to go back, apologize, try and repair, try and work on, try to not repeat the mistakes that we made. It's a huge learning curve to raise a teen. We're going to make mistakes as parents. That's inevitable. So let's not be too discouraged when we do make mistakes. Let's just strive to do better, to be humble, to apologize where necessary, and to pay attention to what's happening in the internal world of our children.
Yeah, and I want to close with this point. We're closing our Parenting in the 21st Century series this Sunday, and what you ended on links in so well with Sunday's message, because it's all about the end goal. The goal isn't raising a teenager. The goal is building relationships so that when they out of the house, we still have that relationship and we still connect and able to connect, and they choose to spend time with us. And that comes down to, if we don't invest in this relationship now, nurture this relationship, it's not going to happen eventually. So Leanne, I just want to thank you for your time. I know it took a lot of effort from your side to be here with us. It wasn't easy, so thank you for that, because I know it helped me, and I know it's helping a lot of parents that are currently going through it and preparing parents that are going to go through it in the next few years. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Awesome. It's been a great pleasure to be here, Dirk. Thank you so much for the invitation.
No, great. Make sure you're ready for Sunday. We're in lockdown level 2, which means we're closer to 1 than we were last week, which is a great celebrate. So we're able to accommodate more people. We're still COVID-19 compliant, so you will be safe. And I just want to leave you with this last thought. Have a great week.